Arturo is one of the awesome people that we've had the opportunity to connect with. Arturo, as you're going to find out, is a community leader, for his space, the Blender community, and much more than that. But we're going to get into that in just a second. JRM 1181, what's up? All right. So let's get to it, Arturo. I'm gonna just open the floor for you, and maybe you can introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and
Sure.
yeah.
Well, firstly, thanks for having me. As always, pleasure to chat with you, and always happy to have a platform to share, my experiences and what I'm working on. So for a bit of background, it's been mentioned a couple of times. My name is Arturo. I am an artist and a technologist. I am from Venezuela. I was born and raised there, and yep, represent. And
Represent.
when I was about 7 or 8 years old, I moved to the States. The situation in Venezuela was not ideal, and my family decided to stay. And so we stayed in the United States, and I grew up in Miami, Florida for the rest of my childhood, and went to college there, community college. And I was studying neuroscience and biomedicine at the time. I stumbled upon this course towards the last year of my college career called CS50, which is a computer science introduction. It was being taught online, but there was an in-person component, so I went to check it out. And very long story short, after finishing the course, I got to meet the instructors and the team from the course and actually learn a bit about how they were running things behind the scenes over at Harvard. I got to visit them, hang out with them, and to make a very long story short, again, I ended up working with them for the past 5 years almost. And so
Wow.
that's what I've been up to. That's where I got sort of my hands dirty in photography, cinematography, editing, and the like, and found really my passion for that. That had always been there, but that kind of really got it going. And then I decided to start playing around with 3D art, mostly inspired by film and visual effects and stuff, and wanted to incorporate some of what I could learn into my own projects. Enter Blender. So then I started learning Blender, got embedded in
Nice.
that community, and here we are.
Nice. That's what's up. Well, first of all, it just makes me so happy as a Latino to know that, we have other folks in these higher institutions going for it. Harvard is needs no introduction. That's a big name. And shout out to all the people that are self-driven out there, like Arturo, that are going for it. I know that a lot of people in the XR space, this is really pay to play. We're going for it. Shout out to Kim Alban out there too. So many folks that are learning, sharing what they learn, and utilizing the resources that are out there. So that class, I've seen that class myself. Everything is out there, right? You can take classes from Harvard, MIT, you name it, and it's all available. So shout out to you for taking advantage of these resources. You mentioned, a little bit how you got into 3D. Like, tell us a little bit more about that. What was your first, 3D project, and how has your journey been from the beginning to sort of where you're at now?
Yeah, I start. I
Kevin A,
think
represent.
represent. Yeah, I've been trying to kind of pinpoint how it started. I think I've always been interested in visual effects, animations. From watching like Bambi and those films growing up, to obviously some of the newer stuff. And I think specifically in 3D art and 3D work, I was really interested in finding ways that in which I could incorporate visuals that I imagined, kind of sculpt them and create them from nothing, and then put them in some of my work or just standalone pieces. And so in late 2019, about September, I was playing around with After Effects quite a bit. And I kind of kept hitting this roadblock that could only be solved by learning a whole new program, obviously, as one does. And I chose Blender because it was free, open source, and I knew that there was this big community around it that was really welcoming. And that was proven to me a couple of months in, when after hundreds of questions asked online, I kept getting answers and help and suggestions and critique and praise and this, that, and the other. And so that really did it for me. It wasn't only the tool that solved the issue that I was having, which was how do I create things, but also the community around it that kind of built
Yes.
myself up as they were building each other up, and building themselves up too. And it was you know, kind of akin to my experience with CS50, which is this course that's taught at Harvard, but made freely available for everyone to take online, free of cost. One of the things that was attractive to me about Blender is that it wasn't unattainable and it wasn't inaccessible and it wasn't
Mm,
expensive. You know, it doesn't get much better than free, especially when it comes with the support of a huge community behind it that extends beyond
right,
the people, the core group that's making that happen.
right.
And so it was a no-brainer for me to pick that up. And so that's been, I want to say I really got into it at some point in January of 2020, and definitely by the time, you know, that 2020 progressed past March,
Mm-hmm,
and we were all spending a lot of time at home,
mm-hmm.
I took any bit of free time that I had into doing that because it was a way that I could continue creating and kind of developing these ideas
Right.
and skill sets without
Yeah.
having to go outside.
Right. Yeah. Shout out to everybody that picked up new skills during the pandemic. You know, I hear these stories all the time. Actually, we just did an in-depth article with Christian Stoles, who created
Hmm.
the Blender add-on for the Looking Glass system. And you know, he mentioned that, you know, truly it was a pandemic. It was that time. So if you got a new skill that you learned during the pandemic, put it in the comments. We got a question here from Clashing King. Arturo, what is your profession?
That's a great question. I think the best way to encompass all the different interests that I've had over the years and that I've actually had the opportunity to kind of develop professionally, I would say technologist because it encompasses much more than the research and development, sometimes actually the production and actuation of goals. And so I would say a technologist, but prior to that, I would call myself a cinematographer, photographer,
Mm,
because that is also part of what I've done. And so it really
mm-hmm.
depends on what the gig is that I need to do that I'll put
Right.
in a title. But I personally give myself like generalist because I'm just interested
Yeah.
in a little bit of everything, not even just technology stuff. So I will, you know, jump around quite a bit.
That's what's up. Yeah, no, and shout out to all the Blender heads. Eileen, shout out. We got a lot of friends coming through. Polygon graphics. And you, Eileen mentioned new skills, 3D and hacky sack. So shout out
Yeah.
to all the hacky sack champions out there. I
Yes.
haven't played that game in a minute, but that's really awesome. You know, and I think that, you know, to your point, one of the things that we can all embrace is having a growth mindset. Number
Hmm.
one, and number two, you know, not putting ourselves in a box, right? Because as we like to say at Looking Glass, everything connects, right? It's really, I think, embracing that the combination of science and art, humanities, it all comes together. And I think the more we look at ourselves as professionally diverse individuals, I think that, you know, we lend our skills to more places where they're needed. You know, I don't know if
Agreed.
what you think about that, Arturo. That's awesome. That's awesome. So that's awesome. And you know, I want to put out here. I have the Looking Glass. We're going to show some of your holograms in just a
Great.
bit here. But we definitely want to you know, shout out Arturo for you know, just being such an advocate. Here we have this awesome Blender design. If I'm not mistaken, it's Blender, no?
Yes, that's all done in Blender. Blender, I would say, is kind of the tool I touch the most these
Yeah.
days. Um,
So
so
much that you created a community with it, right?
yes, so
Blenderness. Talk about Blenderness.
sure, Blendernest. I didn't create Blendernest. Blendernest was created by a group of six Blender creators who make tutorial content and other types of content online, mostly on YouTube. And it was a way of them get together and kind of talk about what's new in Blender. And it kind of devolved or evolved, depending on who you ask, into something a bit more casual and personal. And we have a private Discord server that I joined and was able to communicate with these educators that I've been learning from. So anytime I'd get stuck on something, I'd find a tutorial online, and you know, everyone teaches things differently. So I was kind of familiar with all the names in the Blender space, and I was able to join this server, as I mentioned, that was private and could ask questions, show works in progress, just chat and hang out. And we really loved the sort of family feeling that was kind of fostering there, that we were fostering there. And so we decided, I believe in April of this year, to open that up to the community. You know, the podcast, a Blender Nest on YouTube is, hey, Purse, shout out to Purse.
Shout
The
out Purse.
The podcast takes place on YouTube, and so we have a couple of audience members that like to ask questions and kind of help guide the conversation sometimes. And we
Mm,
figured, why don't we just have a landing page for everybody to just come and hang out? And so we opened up the community, and the first week it just boomed. We had 500 people just join in. We started holding contests and challenges, it died down a bit after that, but quantity over quality, right? At this point, I think we're somewhere at around 800 active members chatting, asking questions. If you have help or you get stuck, you
mm,
can almost rely on the fact that somebody somewhere in the world will have an answer for you at any given time of day. And so
mm-hmm.
it's been great to have that community there, and it's also given me an opportunity to showcase some of the people in that community by way of the community conversations, which are these interviews that I hold, much like this one, where
Mm.
actually I'm not the one in the hot seat. I'll put someone else in the hot seat and ask them about themselves, their work, how they stumbled upon 3D art, sort of the stuff that we're talking about now.
Yeah,
And so it's been beautiful and a blessing as well to just be able to be surrounded by so many creative people online and kind of
amazing.
have this group hive mind situation going there. So if anybody's interested in joining the server or joining the community, it's family friendly place. If you have a question about something in Blender, you're likely to get an answer. We do showcases, we do challenges and contests. It's a fun time. And we do casual
Nice.
chats as well, where you can just come sit and chat with anybody really while you
Mm,
work. And so it's a good time.
nice. What's the URL? Where can they find it?
Yeah, so if you look up Blender Nest, I'll type it up here in the chat, Blender Nest, and you find us on YouTube or Instagram, you'll find a link to our Discord. Also, blendernest.space. Um, Instagram won't really work with the link here, but I can share it.
Sure. Yeah.
Blendernest.space, and that's where you can find us.
Cool.
Um,
Yeah, we'll make sure to post all
yeah,
the links in just a bit. Clashing King has another question here. I'm an honors student doing honors. I'm a student in honors doing computer science. Which skills should I develop? What do you think, Arturo?
that's a great question. And I get a lot of inbound questions about what should I learn or what should I do? And I always kind of answer the same way, which is that so I studied, as I mentioned, biomedicine in high school. I wanted to be a neurologist. That was my goal. And then once I got to college, it hit me that it was going to be a very long and expensive career in just that one thing. And I had been kind of exposed to all these other avenues of life that I was interested in. So I somehow ended up getting a degree in political science. And then towards the end of that, I started studying computer science, and I got hired to work at this computer science course as a photographer and kind of a producer of the course, and then ended up kind of now as a technologist. So it's a very non-traditional path that I've taken, and I think it's worked out for me. I'm quite happy. I get to do things like this and know a bit about everything and kind of relate to everyone. So I would say if there's one thing that you can kind of acknowledge or recognize in the things that you're interested in, that will be that sort of chameleon tool that fits, or like skeleton key that kind of fits all the locks or many locks, that may expose you to something that maybe has nothing to do with what you were studying with, but that still worked as a vessel to a different point. Then do that. Like, focus on the things, listen to your gut,
Mm,
or develop the gut and then listen to it, to kind of
mm.
follow what you're actually interested in, because I find at least that you'll always do a better job if you are actually working in something that you're passionate and interested in, but also motivated by, because passion can only get you so far.
Right, right. Yeah, no, absolutely. Motivation is everything, and I think that learning itself is a skill as well. If there's a course I recommend to anybody out there that's studying for a hard test or looking to take on a new skill, the growth mindset. On Coursera, there's a class called Learning How to Learn,
Mm-hmm.
and it's either I think it might be through Stanford that is offering that course, but
Mm-hmm.
it's actually very helpful for me as I was once studying for some pretty difficult exams, and it's all about the mindset, right?
That's a
Um,
solid question to, I mean, answer, like understanding how you learn, because everybody learns differently. And while we won't, talking about different learning styles is beyond the scope of this conversation, you got to find what works for you so that you can remain
mm,
engaged and actually pay attention to the things that you're saying.
that's
And I see
that's right.
Ellie, my partner here, says in the chat, CS is applicable to so many fields, and that's true. I would say if you're not currently learning anything computer science related, the person who was asking this question was, but if you're not, I would highly recommend take CS50. It's not just because I worked there. I took it myself before I was working there, or take
Mm,
some class in Python or something
yeah,
like that, because these are languages, and they're the languages that we use to communicate with our devices, and devices, barring some giant catastrophe, are not going anywhere. And so we'll need to know how to interface with them. So CS education
absolutely.
is really important.
Not to mention building the future we want to live in, right?
Exactly.
A question here from Binko Land. Shout out the homie Kevin Ang. Great talk. As someone who co-founded a community for XR artists, I'm curious how you've been able to balance community building and creating.
That's an excellent question. It's a tricky job. I'm fortunate to be in a situation, in a place where where I'm not alone. I don't have to do it alone. And I would say the short answer to that question is having a team that you can rely on and trust. But also, if you don't have that, building one and outsourcing. Definitely don't try to do or learn everything by yourself. Like, there are some people who are really skilled in things that you won't be so good at, and acknowledging that and kind of relinquishing that power from, yourself or your ego or what have you, will get you a long way, because it'll remove the stress for you to actually be able to do the things that you want to do. So we none of us we try to make it such that none of us bear the weight of having this community on our backs alone. So
Mm,
when I do the community conversations, I know that there's 3 or 4 people that are on standby, sometimes actually in the chat, in case anything goes wrong, so I can just focus on what I have to do. And so I
yeah,
would say kind of creating and crafting that spirit and that culture in your community is
hmm,
important, because then it allows you to then have time to go and create. And they're both important. Everything's about like balance, right? And
yeah,
moderation. And so
absolutely.
finding a good team to work with, I think, is
Yeah.
paramount.
Absolutely. And we have a Discord as well, Looking Glass Discord,
Mhm.
and we have a showcase channel. People are always posting, their amazing creations. But I think, everybody has a role to play in these communities. Some people are coming in shy. Some people are coming brand new to platforms like Discord, and they feel a little disoriented. What would be sort of any words of encouragement for folks that are kind of curious, they want to jump into the communities? Maybe they're new to Discord, or what have you. They're brand new. They're just starting from zero. What would be your recommendation, Arturo?
Mm, I would say, even though it doesn't show outwardly all the time or externally, I struggle sometimes in group situations, and it can be really tricky online as well, because you don't get the feedback of somebody's physical reaction to something you said, or the tone of voice that gives away all these cues. Um, so I would say just remember that they're all people like you. They're all probably like erasing what they're typing 15 times before they send it, and like worrying that it's not going to sound funny, or that it's going to sound silly or something. But if you just jump in and kind of immerse yourself as you would if you're trying to learn a new language, then it makes it much easier. You have to kind of let go of that friction. One of the things that I
Mm.
really enjoyed about, or enjoy actively about, the Blender community is, on another server, Aaron Dale's server. There,
Shout out to Arendelle.
shout out to Aaron. There are these battle Blender Royales, and so it's like a battle royale. We each have 45 minutes, and that's actually that piece that you have there of mine. It was created in 45 minutes. That was the time crunch. I used some assets that are already built into Blender libraries to put it together, and so in these Blender Royales, everyone. A group of like 15 to 20 people sometimes will gather, everyone working on the same prompt but different projects. And it sounds really daunting if you're new to it, or if you haven't jumped in. The first couple of Blender Royales that I jumped into, I didn't know if it was okay to like speak up or chat or hang out, or not be Pixar level animator slash Blender user. But it's not about that in these
Right.
communities. It's definitely more about the personal growth and the group growth. And so kind of relinquishing that fear of being in a new space, even if it's online, I think is really helpful, especially for beginners, because it's a step beyond looking everything up yourself and then outsourcing the question that you have to brains that may have the answer, that are willing to help.
That's right. Ellie says 1000%.
Yeah.
Battle royales are so fun.
Yes.
I to tell you the truth, so many of my friends and colleagues, even the people that I work with at Looking Glass, I met at hackathons.
Hmm.
You know, for anybody out there that's been to the Reality Hack over at MIT Media Lab, an incredible place, and hackathons have played such a key role in my career. You know, I can't wait for us to be together again. KZ Don says, "Hi Arturo, what are you currently working on or learning?"
That's my friend. Shout out to Kareem. I am currently working on this piece, which I'll show you here in just a second, and I'm learning how to work with this looking glass display.
Ah,
So this is my entry for the Scantober.
wow. Shout out
Um,
to everybody going into Scantober. Yo, I went to the
yes,
Spirit Halloween store the other day and like legit scanned like every mask.
everything. I don't blame you.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know, Looking Glass and Polycam, which is an app that you can download on your iPhone that allows you to photo scan objects in the real world, are hosting a challenge. It's called Scantober, and Marlon can tell us a bit from that while I fly around this space and kind of show you these scans that I took of my neighbor's Halloween ornaments that I then put together into
Wow.
this scene.
That's amazing, and that's in Blender using the add-on. Shout out Christian Souls who built led the building of our Alice LG add-on for Blender. You can go on to Looking Glass blog now and check out an in-depth article where he explains more about that. But that is an amazing hologram. Kareem, really cool.
Yeah.
Yes,
So Scantober,
amazing.
scan something with Polycam and you know, display it,
Yeah.
use the Scantober hashtag, show it to us. If you have a Looking Glass display, put it up on your Looking Glass and take pictures of it, share it everywhere, poster it up on Twitter, Facebook, and whatnot.
Nice.
And yeah, take part in it because it's been a lot of fun. I've been able to kind of
Yeah.
develop this workflow to answer Kareem's questions of going out into the world, scanning objects with my phone, bringing them back into Blender, and kind of just yeah, polishing them up and making something like what you just saw. So that's what
Amazing.
I've
Tell
been
us a
working
little
on.
bit about that process. You know, demystify that. So, I mean, first of all, the tools we have in our pocket are absolutely incredible. You know,
Hmm.
I just to think. I mean, I remember the term photogrammetry being this like, idea in my head where you needed like a million cameras
Yep.
and DSLRs, and now just with your phone you can go around and do 3D scans. Tell us a little bit about how you go from scan to Looking Glass portrait, because I think that's something that I think a lot of our audience can sink into.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, right now it's really easy and it's made easy thanks to Polycam. Not sponsored, just sharing. I love the work that they're doing over there. But you don't need to have that tool. You can use your phone and use an application on your computer like Meshroom, or even if you have a DSLR, you can use that camera to take photos. And so, what photogrammetry means is essentially creating 3D representations of an object using photography or some capture method, right? And so essentially what you do is you grab your phone and you walk around an object and you orbit it, you take a bunch of pictures and you feed it into a program like Meshroom again, or some of the other ones that I've mentioned, and it will generate these assets for you of with textures and essentially almost ready to go. So what I do is
Hmm.
I will go out and scan. I try to do this on days that are either overcast or in locations where the lighting is kind of even because that yields a better scan most of the time. And then I'll bring it into Blender. If it needs any polishing, I'll polish it up in Blender
Yeah.
using the smooth tool or the sculpt tools. And then thanks to this add-on, I will just frame the camera up and kind of use the eyedropper tool to tell the Looking Glass add-on, use this camera, and sometimes it's ready to go. Just mess with the focal plane a little bit,
Yes.
and you can get some really cool stuff. And it's been a joy to kind of see my renders in this display. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah, so this is
Uh,
actually I can't enter for obvious reasons, but this was
yeah.
my scan for Scantober, and I got
Whoa.
more coming because there's lots of cool stuff at the Spirit Halloween store
Oh
that I was
yeah.
able to scan. But yeah, like you said, easy. You know, you do your scan, export as a GLTF model, bring it into your computer, load up Blender, import that into Blender, make sure that you have the Blender add-on, the Looking Glass Blender add-on installed.
Hmm.
And yeah, eyedropper, boom, you got yourself an awesome hologram. You can preview live. and then you export a quilt, right? So
Yep.
amazing. Show us your hologram again. I would love to see that. Yeah,
Yeah,
let's.
let me re-rig this setup real quick. So here it is. And let me turn
Wow.
off this light real quick.
The bar just went up, Arturo.
Yeah, well, I'm
Bar
not
just went
sure.
high.
I encourage everyone to participate because even though I will be submitting this, I already have a looking glass, so I'm happy to defer to others to make something. But this was a really fun process and very
It's
iterative as
amazing.
well. I have maybe, you know, 10 to 15 different versions of this that didn't quite turn out the way I wanted them to, but we slowly got there, and over a couple of hours I was able to put this together. And I really wanted with this one specifically to play a little bit with the dimension up in the front. So it would kind of be, not necessarily jump out of your screen, but definitely give you that illusion of depth. And I think it worked out.
That's amazing. Yeah, and I think it's all about kind of playing around with the settings, becoming familiar. I myself kind of have started my own Blender journey recently, and
Mm,
so shout out to all the nice folks in the community that help me out when I get stuck. So that's amazing.
yeah.
Um, so Arturo, tell us about what would be that's I think for a lot of the folks that are kind of just getting started, what would be your recommendations for folks that want to take their Blender work to the next level? What would be some of your recommendations?
Don't I? That's a great question. Um, Keep experimenting. That's definitely the one. I use Blender to doodle sometimes, so even if I don't have a specific thing that I want to work on or a specific project, I'll open it up just to kind of get that muscle memory in. It's a bit of practice. And again, I'm a generalist in most regards, and so I try to dabble in a little bit of everything. So once I kind of get the block out of the scene that I want going, then I'll start playing with the lighting. And then I'll kind of jump from one task to another in an orderly or somewhat orderly fashion to make sure that I don't get bored and that I keep it interesting. And don't be afraid to ask questions on YouTube comments or even in Discord servers like the ones that are mentioned, or any of the Discord servers that are open for Blender artists or 3D artists to join, because you will get an answer. And if you don't get it the first time around, don't be discouraged. Just ask again,
Yeah.
because these people are here to share. That's why they're in the server, to share in the wealth of knowledge, and to kind of create these communities where you can feel comfortable asking questions. And sometimes a question might sound like a dumb question, but there are no stupid questions.
That's what's up. Shout out to Loon Studio that just joined.
Enzo,
Arturo, I
yes,
think you have some fans in the chat.
that's my buddy Enzo. Thanks for joining, Enzo.
Shout
Yeah,
out to
Loom Studios
Enzo.
in the chat. I've got this is this was kind of,
Oh wow,
well,
what's that?
my 3DS, really. The Nintendo 3DS was my kind of
Hey.
entry into holography, where I could actually have something in my pocket that created, that I could create 3D art with. But professionally, and in terms of having a daily driver, the Red Hydrogen one, which was
Wow.
a combination of work between Red and Leia, was where it was at,
It's
a couple
amazing you
like
have that,
two
man.
years ago, or in
Wow.
2018. This was my phone, my daily driver. And for those that don't know, this has a display that is a light field display, and you won't be able to see it too well, kind of on camera, but it also gives you that illusion of depth. And so having this in my pocket as my phone, much like now I have my iPhone and use Polycam every day, this revolutionized photography for me, because I was now seeing an extra layer of dimension in everything
Wow.
that I was capturing. And so investing in these tools that has allowed
Mm,
me to get to a point where I can kind of sit here and have a conversation with you about holography with a looking
right.
glass, and with this Red Hydrogen one, and understanding Blender and using Blender. So if you're interested in something, invest in yourself. And
Yeah.
if you're in a position where you can do it, invest in the tools or invest in the communities that kind of prop up the learning, because that's where it's at.
Yeah. That's what's up. Yeah, exposure is everything. David Biddy asked one more time, what kind of phone is that?
This is the Red Hydrogen one. I believe it's since been discontinued, the project, but Leia, the company who manufactures and works on and created the light field display that's on the phone that gives that illusion of depth without you needing to wear glasses, they are still very much alive, and they actually have a loom pad, which is kind of it's a tablet that has the same display of light fields, and it works somewhat similarly to the looking glass. And there are so many different fun, cool tools to play with out there if you're interested in this kind of stuff. And I could talk about that all day.
Amazing. Yeah. Well, we're gonna definitely need you to come back to do another IG live. We're gonna be doing more of these as well. So y'all keep it locked on the Looking Glass IG and
Hmm.
other platforms that we'll be opening this up to. Next question. Something that I think I love to ask. My favorite creators. What is inspiring you currently? What are some trends and signals that you see that are really kind of driving your curiosity today?
Yeah. Well, film has always been a huge, huge inspiration for me, whether it's, again, current or older films. And so that's something that is,
Mm.
for the most part, timeless. You can go back and rewatch a movie and kind of pick up on something new. But in current trends, I would say watching what's happening with the decentralization, both in terms of finance, but also otherwise, is really
Mm.
interesting. And while we won't dive into NFTs and kind of that, breach that subject, some of the 3D art that's being generated these days, that goes beyond being something that someone created. Like I've created this in Blender, but that actually has utility, or in some cases is just an experience, is really inspiring. So, for example, there are some Instagram filters that I've seen that kind of play out these whole stories in your head, really, or not in your head, in your phone screen, really creatively, by using your face and kind of mapping it onto some of the objects that are there, or some of the advancements in augmented reality by way of what Snapchat is doing with their latest headset, or obviously like Apple and whatever they might present at this year's end or next year. Those advances all kind of pushing towards the metaverse is where my inspiration and kind of ideation is
Mm.
at these days.
Yeah, that's right. The future or futures, as any strategic
Hmm.
foresight consulting will quickly correct someone, right? It's not just one future; it's
Yeah.
futures, right? And we determine, how that future comes to fruition. I got you. Yeah, that.
Spider-Man's also really exciting me these days. I
Oh,
can't,
tell
I
us about
can't,
that.
yeah. Well, the new movie, you said
No
futures, so
spoilers,
I'm
but
thinking, no spoilers. I mean, it's not come out yet, but yeah, the futures, the idea of that it's not one future, but these kind of fractioned universes of opportunity, that's
mm,
really exciting. So I just had to geek out
amazing.
there. I have a Spider-Man
Hey,
poster
please,
back
this is the
there.
place. This
Yeah.
is the place. This is a safe space. Shout out to Shar, my teammate over at Looking Glass, responsible for a lot of the software that we're using to power these amazing systems.
Big shout.
You know, Big shout. Yes, absolutely. And so, that's amazing. I think similarly, I think now that we are all connected and we have so many opportunities to communicate, we see what folks are working on. And not to mention the diversity of voices in the space, I think is
Hmm.
something to celebrate these days. It's not just, one particular, group of folks that are, making XR, but also just so many different communities, and I think that's a really positive thing. Hopefully
Agreed.
more of that, right?
Yeah, that's also something that's really, really exciting me these days. Again, is the community, and not to dive too deep into Blender Nest or Blender specific communities,
Please,
but just the
bro.
fact that people are gathering in online spaces and kind of creating
Yes.
these hubs where anyone can go to uh, just live out. You're not separated physically, and we haven't been for a while with the internet, but these days, more than ever, you can jump online, find a Discord server, and make a new friend that's going to be a solid friend, or somebody who's going to teach you something, or ask questions or take part in activities together, in the physical world as well. So seeing kind of that bridging of the communities that were kind of disjointed, prior to 2020 to now, as you said, diversity and kind of these groups and meshing. That's also really exciting because it just means that more and more people will hopefully be accepting not just of the kind of different interpersonal traits that we have, but also the intrapersonal of, somebody earlier was asking, what should you learn? And my answer was kind of focus on something that's generalist and that allows you to share something in common with other people as well, so that you kind of can always have something to talk about, and share. So
Yes.
that's been exciting to be a part of, not just
Yeah.
in recent years, but I think that's greatly a large part of my foundation has been just being able to be in the right community at the right time.
That's what's up. Going back to just Blender love, I want to share this hologram made by our colleague Yasmini.gif here on Instagram.
I
Yasmini
love that.
Islas from Mexico City, representing Mexico City, my hometown, by the way.
Hmm.
Um, this was a part of Cute Drop that we had recently. But yeah, so many amazing creative folks that are part of this community, and it really sounds like everybody just is doing their part, right? Ellie
Yeah.
McQueen says cute. Yes, absolutely. Everybody go follow Yasmini, that gift. She's amazing. You were saying, Arturo.
Oh no, I'm agreeing with you. It's been amazing
Mm,
to see just how many people get I don't want to say uplifted, but just get the spotlight. Get shared in the spotlight of what's happening now, and
mm,
amplifying voices that need amplification or that are seeking
yes,
amplification is always a good thing.
absolutely. And speaking of folks doing their part, we just got I read the news that Apple is now
Mhm.
supporting Blender. What are your thoughts on that? How will that affect the creative community? What do you think?
Yeah, well, in the same spirit of kind of amplifying voices, I'm pretty excited about that. So for those that don't know, recently Apple is backing the Blender Development Fund as a corporate patron member, which doesn't mean that they get none of the people who are actively backing the Blender Development Fund get any say in how the software looks or what it does. But what they essentially do with their money and with their teams is say, we like that this is happening, we support this, we want this to continue, how can we help? And
Mm,
so I believe Blender at the moment has something like 12 core developers. Don't quote me on that. It might be less than that. But the work that they're doing speaks for itself in the tool. And so having companies like Facebook, Microsoft in recent years, and then recently Apple back the development fund is exciting because again, it doesn't mean that they get to tell Blender how to act or how they're going to be down the
mm,
line, but it's open and direct. We support this, and so I think we'll start to see. Well, it was announced, I believe, that there will be specific dedicated support to Mac OS for Blender, which wasn't a
mm.
thing before. And obviously, like with the new infrastructure that's coming out by way of Apple's new computers, I think we'll start to see some maybe juiced up versions of Blender that run well and
Mm.
properly and natively on Mac, which means that for the Mac audience, which is a reasonable subset of the world.
Yes.
It's going to be another tool. It's not the whole world. Let's remind you, but
Yes.
the people that have Macs, if they want to, will now be able to use Blender in a way that kind of is more akin to what people on Windows will be able to do, and maybe better. I doubt that bit, but
Yeah.
so it's exciting because it's just another stamp of approval on the Blender developer team, saying you've done this right. We want to back you. I myself I support the Blender Development Fund because I'm not paying for the tool, and I'm in a position where I can do that. And so I want to give back because
Respect.
this tool has been this was my 2020 was inside
Yes.
this screen. So
That's what's up.
do yeah,
That's awesome. That's really cool. And for some more Blender love, I got another hologram here that I want to
love
share.
it.
This was they just popped up on the Discord, and this is by Pandoranium 3D. Pandoranium 3D,
Shouts.
one of the shouts to Pandoranium 3D, one of the all-stars in the Looking Glass Discord who shared this. Yo, shout out to Raul Sotomayor from Mexico City. My man,
Shout out.
tapping in. Another artist who I think, is blending 3D art and music wonderfully. If you haven't checked them out, Sotomayor, incredible music. They recently came out here to New York and we got to see them. But so yeah, follow Tonga Conga and Sotomayor, amazing. And we want to see some of those amazing holograms, some of those 3D artworks from your albums in the Looking Glass soon, Raul. So we got to talk about that. That's right, Ellie. Mad respect, love. So here's a little bit of a, let's do a little rapid fire before we kind of call it here.
Sure.
So there's going to be just fast questions. Don't think about it too much.
Okay.
Just go for it.
This
This
is
is a
this is funny
safe
because I
space.
do this to my guests on the community conversations, and it's always really funny for me, but it's not funny right now. But let's do it.
No, you're good. We're amongst friends, right?
Yeah.
Y'all, we're amongst friends. Everybody here is cool. So no worries about that. So Arturo, tell what is the most visually amazing thing you've ever seen?
Oh, Zion National Park in Utah, probably.
Wow.
Yeah.
Talk about high
Angel's
fidelity though.
Landing. Yep.
Yes, yep. Yo, for real, like after I got involved in XR, I realized how incredible this computer is right here.
Yep.
And this
It's the best
computer,
one. It's the best one we got.
yo, the fidelity. Right? Amazing. What's your favorite movie? You talked about film. What's your favorite movie?
Oof. Oh man, this is a rough one. I have a list on my phone
All
of
right,
movies for the
all right, top five. Put it in the
top
top
five.
five.
Oh man, I would say probably anything by Michel Gondry is one of my favorite movies. I gotta cap it there because otherwise I might name one and then regret it later because it's definitely not there. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Well, that's a true cinephile right there, right? Too many, too many. It's like when people ask me about, what's your favorite
Music.
music, and I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my
No
God.
thanks.
To to my right here, I have like this huge vinyl collection of all
Oh
sorts
yeah.
of genres. So it's like the worst question to ask me. Here's another question: if you could spend the day with any artist, past or present, who would it be?
Oh my God. Banksy, just to know who they are.
See what it
You
looks
know?
like. That's what's
It
up.
might be a group of people, who knows? But that's the
Yeah.
first one that came to mind. I'm sure there's a couple of artists right now going, "Oh, Arturo, why not me?" But you as well.
That's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah, maybe they would be like, "Yo, get in the van. We're gonna go. We're gonna go
Yes.
bomb some." That's
Exit
what's
through
up.
the
That's
gift
what's
shop.
up. Yeah, we're gonna go make some art. It's amazing. Another question. What do you hope happens in the next decade? And this could be about anything.
Uh, I would say the first thing that comes to mind is kind of the recession of the, how to put this lightly, the undoable or yeah. Basically, you can't hit Control Z on the damage or Z that we've done to the planet. So a slowdown of that, kind of more conscientiousness and people getting together, recognizing each other's differences and being accepting of them because they're unlikely to go away, and kind of working on a shared goal. That would be ideal for the next decade. Otherwise, it might be looking a bit bleak.
That's a great answer, right? If we don't have that, none
Nothing
of this
else
matters.
matters really.
No,
It's all just,
yes.
it's literally all just BS.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for joining us, Arturo. I think we've all learned something from today's conversation. Where can people follow your work? What are your handles? What are your plug whatever you want here.
Plug. All right. Well, thanks so much for having me. I'm plugging Looking Glass, obviously. I'm plugging
Oh,
Marlon specifically. Marlon, my friend. Thanks for having me. And for myself, if you want to find me, you can find me here on Instagram through this account, which is Arturo J for my middle name, Real, Real. Or you can find me literally anywhere else online with that same name on YouTube. So if I wanted to plug something, I'd probably plug my YouTube channel, which is just starting out. I did a series recently on exploring
ooh,
photogrammetry. So if you're curious about what I was talking about earlier in terms of taking pictures of objects in the real world and bringing them into Blender and working with them, I have a whole series on that. There's one more video left to go, which will be dropping soon. And then after
ooh,
that, there will be a series on exploring holography and holograms specifically, featuring Looking Glass.
oh,
So stay tuned for that.
hey.
If you want to find, yeah, if you want to find if you want to find this, it's all over on my YouTube channel.
Awesome. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Anybody have any last questions for Arturo here? We got one question about Looking Glass. Check on the website, lookingglass.com, lookingglassfactory.com, and we have a pre-order section there. But any other questions that anybody else has in the chat, feel free to ask at this point. We got Arturo J. Real here representing Blender Nest and so many other amazing communities. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice. All right. Arturo,
There you go.
thank you so much for
Thanks for
joining
having me.
us. It's been such a pleasure. And can we have you back again?
Oh yes, I'd love to come back.
Awesome, awesome. Right on, Arturo. Well, everyone, thanks so much for joining. We're going to be posting this on other channels as well. So you might be seeing this after the live broadcast, but once again, want to thank our special guest and props to everybody out there that's going for it, that is picking up these different tools, that is really creating the future of XR. And shout out to everybody out there that's into Looking Glass. We appreciate you, and we'll talk to you again soon. All right.
Bye.
Take care. Bye, everyone.